Good evening! Tonight, we're doing some Dragoon dailies. I've been noticing something in the pre-stream that it was acting a little strange for me. Do let me know if it's lagging. Don't know what I can do about it, but I would like to know if it starts lagging, like if the stream starts to act up for you. Like, unusually so. So my friend Aria decided to build a dance hall in my house. So welcome to my dance hall. It looked like this. Hey Cheryl, hey Orion, hey Ymir, hey Kayan, hey Makoto, hey Tidano. I hope you're all doing very well. I have had a good day, thank you Makoto. I hope you have as well. And hey Hoshi. Yeah, as usual, we're just going to be doing some dailies with Dragoon. Now, usually these kinds of streams accompany like job guides with them, but just like it happened with Bard some weeks ago, where we just kind of did it because it never really got one. Dragoon had its guide remake like half a year ago, I think. And back then, the Tuesday streams typically were like ranked stuff, like ranked crystalline conflict stuff. So, because we weren't doing daily streams every week or every other week, there wasn't like an opportunity to cover every job in this way, so we're doing it now. Better late than never, right? Let's hope I remember how to play Dragoon, considering I've been playing it every week on Small Kai for months. Hey Lemon, I hope you're doing good as well. Margaret says, just woke up and had some grub. About to start some Final Fantasy 14. What could be better? I know, right? Yeah. We have a little. I think Aria has added more like plates to the dance floor. I only had 4. Kyan says Stormblood is coming to trial on 6.5. Yes. So so for those interested, patch 6.5, among a bunch of other things that we already knew was coming, like new Alliance raid, augmented crafted gear, also just adds all of Stormblood to the free trial. Like all of it. So that means, I'm pretty sure it means Samurai and Red Mage is free to play. And level 70. And all of that story. And Eureka. All of Eureka. Free to play. Although it might be difficult to make groups on the fly if everyone in Eureka is like on a free trial. You know what I mean? That might be difficult to deal with. Since I'm pretty sure free trials just flat out cannot invite others to parties, right? So that would pose a little bit of a problem. Hey Mihoels and Coco. And oh, it's just glad to see you as well. Finally I can play the Mage. Oji says, a German news site did an article about the FanFest and they constantly stated that the Final Fantasy XIV community is very wholesome. I thought that was sweet. Yeah, I do agree, that is very nice. And hey, Kosari, enjoy your raids. And I am also sorry to hear that, Lemon. Hopefully it gets a little better. Maybe it won't. That's how those kinds of things are sometimes. But hopefully you can feel a little bit better with time. Hopefully it doesn't get worse. Yeah. So I know some people sometimes hang out outside, and when we start doing roulettes, we also get booted out of the building anyway. So might as well go outside. Now that we had a little dance party. It's a bit of a shame that it kicks you out of the house whenever you come out of a roulette. But I do understand why. I absolutely understand why. Because it might be difficult for the game to actually track where you were. In particular, because, you know, you can... I don't know if you've seen it, but you can push yourself out of bounds in housing. And you can actually put down furniture out of bounds in housing. So you could just, like, build, like, a room out in the black nothingness that surrounds your house. Fun fact, your house is a cube in the void. So isn't that something? Ymir says, is your floor grass? Some of it. Mihuel says, if it didn't kick you out, you'd get boss blood all over the floor. Fair point. Imagine if you could bring the boss to your house, though. That would be kinda neat, wouldn't it? That also makes sense, Lemon, that the reasoning why you pop up near the house is because you actually are supposed to be going all the way to the dungeon, and then, like, your character goes back to what they were doing, so you just, like, kinda return to the game just before you return to your house. Exactly, Hoshi. We live in the void. Actually, I think we live somewhere that is even more voidy than the actual void. There's a lot of color in the void. Stanislav says, how do you click Battle Litany with one hand? Shift plus. So... Whoops. I have like an MMO mouse, and plus is actually keybound to like the mouse is actually bound to the entire right side of my hotbars. So that means I can, with my keyboard hand, this camera's mirrored. With my keyboard hand in the air, I can hold up my mouse and press 7. I thought I was an octopus. Coco says at this point we need a hand cam. Are you sure you want that? Are you sure that would actually be helpful? I don't even know how I would set that up. Maybe it could hang here. I don't know if I have actually ports to add one. Maybe I do. But yeah, it's mostly just I use 1 to 6 on my keyboard, and 7 and all the way to plus on my mouse. But it isn't easy to use the MMO mouse at first. For a long time, I just kind of had that whole thumb grid without being sure what to use it for. Then I realized, just use the front half to reach the back half of your hotbar. That made it way easier instead of trying to make 1-1 and stuff like that. I thought that helped immensely, at least for me. Or a feed cam. That's not happening. That would be weird. Oh, she says I would like to join the under 90s roulette as Dark Knight because I'm level 86 on the job. Well, we see what we're dealing with when we get there. For now, we have expert roulette. And if I know Matthew correctly, they're waiting for their own raid to start. Delano usually only wants to join if there is an extra slot and no one else is interested. So we have Orion and Shade and Nelva here. Is that going to be the group? Or is any one of you not interested in joining? Now the question is, do we have a healer among us? Emia says, is there space? Well, we are 4, so that would come down to, do you want to come? And also, does someone else here not want to come? The healer was the imposter. Dun, 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 dun. Alright. In that case, this is our group. Yeah, I hope as we go down the list. So I thought about this after last stream. So the thing is, I want everyone to have a chance of like joining for roulettes. But the thing is that if I make it like a rule that, oh, if you were allowed to come to a specific duty, then you get booted out for space for someone else. Then people might be going, oh, well, I only want to do the level. I specifically really want to do the leveling roulette, so I will just skip on the expert roulette or something like that. So that now suddenly I'm sitting there with no group rather than a group. So my first thought was, maybe we don't count the level 90 exclusive content, right? Because some people might actually go, I don't care about the level 90 dungeons, for example. But there's also only 2 of these. So ultimately what I have circled back down to is, you know, if you have done multiple roulettes already on the stream, and there's other people that also want to join, then, you know, it would be nice if people like rotate willingly so that I don't have to make the decision, but I am more willing to keep one that didn't get to do anything, like that hasn't been allowed to come along yet, so that everyone gets to play, because I want to play with everyone. It is not anything against anyone, it is in fact that I want to include everyone that I'm saying this. But I just wanted to mention that, because last week we had a little bit of a position where we sat with 5 people and had to like go, okay, so who's leaving? But yeah, it's like, I know some people might not want to do level 90 content, and then I know that there's some people that literally cannot do the level 90 content. Like, for example, Coco does not have access to it yet, so she usually waits diligently for the leveling roulette and stuff like that. Because she can't join for the max level stuff. So that's why I'm saying, you know, I hope we can all figure it out. If we are 8 people or something like that, then there's also no point in like 4 people just kind of sitting there. Like, we could make 2 groups. Case in point, you are 3 there if you want to do something. And that's him here. Woolly Ram. Hey, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing woolly. Yeah, you could, I don't, as I said, Coco does not have expert roulette, but, yeah. Oh, Matthew straight up AFK, well then. Right, so let's get started, instead of just talking about it. Are you ready, Shade? Hey Tristan, are you doing well? I hope you're doing well. Will Ram says I'm just chilling before work. Nice. Now let's see if I can actually remember how to play Dragoon. Dragoon and Dancer DPS comp is like the buffs for everybody composition. We have buffs for each other and we have buffs for everyone. This is a very, very awkward position. Very awkward way those mobs are clumped by default. You're about to have a call with a new player in your D&D group. That's all right, Tristan. If you enjoy hanging out, that's good enough for me. Then like if this stream works as some nice background noise to a conversation with your D&D player, then that's perfect. And exactly, Lemon. It's the Oprah of team compositions. Oh dear. My buffs are going to be very awkward. The buffs are strange. What a great way to start a dungeon. Huh? What happened? I should have postponed Stardiver a little bit there. I was very focused on actually getting it used with the awkward position. Oh, I'm apparently tanking. Nice. I'll take it with my chainmail armor. Yeah, I was just about to say, Tristan, you don't want a job known as the floor tank to be tanking for you, I don't think. That's usually how they end up becoming the floor tank in the first place, isn't it? That was not what I wanted. I wanted to backflip with the boss, and then instead I perfectly backflipped away from the boss. Let's see if we get everything. So many cooldowns to spend. Oh right, the boss has mechanics. Don't you dare jump away from me. Let me have my life surge. Uh-oh. They're just finishing my combo and then like turning the camera and just staring a stampede straight in the face like, oh, excellent. Yeah, exactly, Lemon. Just to be continued. Just freeze frame as we stare down the stampede. Kyan says this is one of the optional dungeons of Endwalker. Nope, this one is actually a mandatory one. It is just one of those dungeons that, without context, is so completely off track of what you'd think a real, like, main quest would look like, that it's understandable that you'd think that it is optional. But this is actually a main quest one. How did this single mob survive so cleanly? How did we miss it? Yeah, that is actually a pretty common thing, is that like when I record footage, like background footage for guides and stuff, I do care at least a little bit about not putting like a main quest, like super lore crucial thing like right in your face, because, you know, there's no reason for me to do that if I can just use a dungeon that is, you know, a little less story relevant. But a lot of the endgame dungeons are like so random or off track from what you'd think is a main quest thing that you wouldn't know the difference until you actually, you know, have done it yourself and go, oh, that's the context. That's why we're out in the middle of the snow. Which I think is pretty good. Yeah, exactly, Lemon. The Grand Cosmos without context. That is a pretty good example. At the start of Endwalker, what I typically did was actually so I mostly only I managed to backflip exactly out of the arena, guys. Did you see that? Like my toe was out of the arena, so it just kicked me. F for my damage. That was so perfectly complete utter failure. Like, it doesn't get any worse than that. I have optimized being bad. Yeah, at the start of Endwalker, when I was making guides on like on healers, I would always like include a section. I still do that, but I would always include sections of like actual dungeon footage, especially in the final bit, to like showcase how do you actually play it in reality, because with like a DPS or even a tank, it's somewhat manageable to like figure out sort of how it's going to be playing, just based on descriptions. But a healer, many of your buttons are like, you use it like this when that happens. Which is completely pointless if you don't see what that looks like, right? So I always included some combat footage in the guides. But what I would do is that I would specifically, intentionally queue for Smileton, because I think most of you will agree that Smileton is such utter chaos and mayhem that without context, it's essentially like a nothing burger of lore. Like, tells you nothing about what's going on. So I specifically queued for that one, and I still kind of do that. It's just that right now, Expert Roulette, neither of the dungeons are like tell you anything without context. They don't believe Smileton is a real dungeon, a real dungeon name. How about Stigmascape? Actually, maybe you'd have an even harder time convincing them that Sigmascape is a raid. Smileton sounds more like a character. Hey, you know what? That is actually a good point. It kind of does. Could you imagine? Yeah. The Sigma thing and the memes. And there's a raid called Sigmascape? Sure. One thing that might be worth pointing out is that personally, in my opinion, Dragoon is one of my worst performing jobs. Like, I'm not very good at actually playing Dragoon. Partly because due to its sheer magnitude of buffs that it can apply, it's like if I'm not playing a job that I'm like especially skilled at, I can usually like get by you know, just thinking logically about how to use my cooldowns, and then it sort of works. But Dragoon is like, no, you have to get the 2-minute burst correctly, because I do it alone. Like, Dragoon is the entire raid buff package, just alone, without the raid. So if you don't get it right, you're gonna feel it. You have entered the Sigmascape and the... What's the Sigma guitar tune? And that is also true, Tristan. With the kinds of names content, like quests, dungeons and stuff has in the game, Smileton is absolutely like on the tamer side, like of what it could have been. He brings his all to a bear. Let's see, where is the safe spot? It's over here. The safe spot is over here. Oh, that is wait, is this a safe spot? I think it is. Spear! Spear! Take this!
Wonder how you'll taste.
Spear! Spear!
Battles are so wet the appetite.
Oh, the stack marker is going to be on me. Ow. A poking blade. Everything's a blade if you're brave enough, I think. If you're strong enough, you can slash with anything. I'll use my defensive cooldown too, guys. I don't have one. Time for my powerful defensive cooldown, but nothing happens. Oh, well, you see, I don't have one. Wait, it's all blade? Always has been. Such blade! This was not my blade. Uh-oh. Oh, I have a defensive cooldown for that. Here you go, have faint. I had something. Do you believe in blade? That was an impressive limit break. It just happened. It looked like it resolved as he just flew in. Yeah, Twine says, I hear it in a bunch of shots. I don't know how to describe it. It's with a bunch of clips from a show called Suits to showcase the main character being a Sigma. Oh, I see. Kyan says, at level 70 is when Dragoon gets the Dragon Aura buff thing. Do I use it when I get the chance, or use it with buffs? The simple answer is you want to make sure you use it with buffs. So you want to make sure it's with Lance Charge. The complicated answer is the optimal opener starts with Geistgurgul first and then jump and Mirage Dive, specifically such that you get like the full eye, so that your next Geistgurgul gives you the aura thing when Lance Charge is available. If you do high jump Geistgurgul, then you'll actually get the life of the dragon like 30 seconds off from when Lance Charge comes up. Naturally, if you're in like a boss fight from start to finish, like you do your opener and then the fight just continues forever. But in a practical sense, it is not unlikely that you'll enter a fight, like a boss fight, with this state, right? Like you have one already in the chamber. If that's the case and everything else is available, then you will start with high jump, Mirage Dive, and then Geistgurgul, specifically so that you get Life of the Dragon with Lance Charge. So the simple answer is you always want Life of the Dragon to line up with Lance Charge. The complicated answer is that the optimal opener is designed to do that naturally, assuming that you don't enter the fight with some unexpected resource. And the best you can do is like think on the fly. I actually have like a really... It's not a short, actually. It's not a short, but it's a very short video. Which is like slightly more than a minute. And explains how you can optimize Life of the Dragon. Like, you can, like, if the boss is about to die, so you don't there won't be another lance charge, then you can, like, delay Geiskagul so that you go high jump, Mirage Dive Geiskagul, even though through the entire fight you've had Geiskagul first, you postpone Geiskagul a few seconds, but then you can flip them so that you get the full Life of the Dragon with your lance charge, and then you do high jump, and then another Geiskagul, so you get another Life of the Dragon, like, back to back. If the fight is ending, then that's free damage that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. If the fight isn't ending, doing that means that your next lance charge will not have Life of the Dragon. Which is painful. So like that's why it's complicated. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot you can do. So that's what makes Dragoon very flexible and also very difficult. And hey Riku, I hope I am having a nice evening. I hope you have a nice one too. Twan says, why exactly do you have your top buff abilities comboed with A? The A means alt, not A. That would be very difficult. This is what happens when I hold A. Do that instead of control. That might be a good idea. Just make sure if you're using alt as a keybind for anything, just, you know, don't keybind F4 to anything that you're using on the regular, right? I use F4 to target player 4, but I will never hold alt and press F4, and don't do it now. Your game is gonna close. Rico says, what finger do you use to press alt? My thumb. Yeah, I just use my thumb. I use my pinky for shift. Usually. I'm guessing that the level 90 roulette isn't the one that is the most coveted one. Technically, yeah, Hoshi, technically, using Alt F4 will make the computer faster since it will close something, which will make it use less resources, so not wrong. Really funny. Not wrong. Really funny. Hopefully it didn't take too long to get there, whatever it is that the teacher had opened to get back on track. But it's the classic one I've seen a few times is people going, there's this weird bug that happens, like, whenever I use this specific action, the game just closes with no error or anything. And then, like, if you can see, like, video footage or, like, a screenshot, people will be like, Did you bind that attack to Alt F4? Yes, why? You know, try pressing Alt F4 without the action. See what happens. In a different game, maybe. Or a different program. Try using it while you have this browser you're discussing with us in right now open. See what happens. Weird, that crashes too, huh? It is pretty funny. A pretty good one as well is, I don't know if there is a command for it in Final Fantasy XIV, but in World of Warcraft, if you write /rest in chat, you will be logged out. Like, your character will sit down and try to log out, which takes 20 seconds if you're not in a safe zone. Or like an inn or something. Which of course means that it is way funnier to suggest people write /rest while in a city. Because then it just goes and closes. Because I'm pretty sure it's exit game that it does, not just log out to character select. So something I just wanted to mention this because Nelva, so that's Hoshi, asked about it before. So I just wrote in chat that we can mix up the groups when we get to the lower level stuff, because part of the problem is that Lemon and Coco literally cannot do the level 90 stuff right now. So that means we are 8, but only 6 of us can do level 90 stuff. But when we get to the lower level stuff, like, Hoshi specifically said they wanted to play Dark Knight. Doesn't have to, like, you can play Dark Knight. Doesn't necessarily have to be in my group. I'm not saying that Hoshi is getting booted, but it was more to say that we can mix things up to make sure that everyone gets to play what they want. I just wanted to bring that up as an example, not that I'm saying that Hoshi is getting booted specifically, not at all. But it was just an example. Right. Yes, for instance, a friend of mine tried it once with our college professor, but he didn't realize that we're using a MacBook, so Alt F4 isn't the combo for that. Instead, it's Command Q, equivalent of Windows Q. Took them 5 minutes before realizing why it wasn't working. Well, that is a skill issue, as they call it. Oh. So apparently someone else is joining. Oh, don't worry about that, Lemon. I don't think we've really ever had like a focus on people having to be really good or perfect on these streams. The important thing is having fun, and I've talked about this before. Sometimes, like, playing badly is actually, like, if someone is playing badly, that leads to, like, fun stuff for other players. Like, that means the tanks have to play a little bit more better, and that means the healers have to, like, have a little bit more opportunity to show off. Things like that. Which you might not get nearly as much opportunity, remember close position. Yeah, exactly, it's one. It's a Hangout stream. It's not a sweaty tryhard stream. Do you think that would sell better? Join me for this sweaty tryhard stream where we play Dragoon only, and every time I mess up my opener in the slightest, I sit down and cry for 5 minutes. just mid combat, just drop everything, just go and have a cry. Every time I miss my opener, I start criticizing my team. Now, that is an interesting strategy, which I'm sure won't get you on anyone's bad side ever. That's a speed run. Get hated by my raid team. I drifted by GZD by 0.01 second. Better restart. Just wipe it. Just wipe it. I didn't crit my first star diver 1 minute into the fight. Just wipe up. April Fool's stream. Oops, all sweaty tryhards. I don't think I'm actually... Like, there are a few jobs where I could possibly get away with doing that. But if I'm also streaming, that is unlikely to work out well. It's not easy to play well while also trying to be funny and entertaining. Oh, rear receptors. Now you might say that it should be easy because I'm not funny. I'm not even trying. But I am trying to be funny. Oh my god, that is such a funny statement. Indeed. That is funny that you mentioned that right after you mess up your rotation, isn't it, Mr. Streamer? What a weird coincidence that you should happen to mention that right... Oops. And then he actually messed up. And then no one noticed that that funny streamer guy actually messed up like 2 mechanics back to back right there. Yeah, exactly, Twan. That's the real origin of streamer brain, if you've ever heard anyone refer to that. The suddenly, like, the streamer claims that they're really good at a game, and then they stream it, and then they're kinda bad. That streamer brain is specifically, suddenly you're not like 100% hyper focused on just playing well, and suddenly it doesn't work. But that is, at least to my knowledge, that is what happens. And these mobs are dying so fast. Hey Coco, did you have a nap? Went to buy Monster at dinner. Nice. Well, it sounds like you're ready to party. Fishbread says, anyone else find it funny that ignoring the GCD and OGCD difference, a Dragoon's strongest attack is a full like 200 to 700 lower than other melee jobs? That is a good point. I think we've talked about that before. That I've talked a little bit about this, indirectly, because we've talked about what would you like to see in the Dragoon rework that we know is coming. And my wish list is like, I wouldn't mind that maybe Dragoon had a little bit less OGCDs, not because there's anything wrong with the quantity of OGCDs, but because if they had fewer OGCDs, then it would be more reasonable for Stardiver to do good damage, which would be way cooler. Like that's my motivation for saying I want Dragoon to lose OGCDs is if you had less OGCDs, then Stardiver would be better. That is the only reason. Oh. I miscalculated that save spot by a pixel. I really thought I had it. Also that Fishbread. Stardiver takes like a full 1.5 seconds to perform. And it's just an OGCD. They could, like, that is actually something that I've also brought up, is that I would like it if they included jumps more in, like, the GCD part of the rotation. That would be pretty cool. Because that would, again, mean that the jumps would be a more, like, stronger part of the rotation, instead of just being, like, feeling like a little bit of almost an afterthought. Even if it isn't. Yeah, all melees are not created equal. That's true. The good news are that all melee are somewhat close to each other in damage. Jumps could be modifier buffs to make GCDs, like a Spine Shatter Chaotic Spring in one GCD. It could be something like that. I just mostly want the jumps to not feel like an afterthought. Like, I'm just saying that Spine Shatter Dive and Dragonfire Dive are, like, in terms of importance to your rotation, they're like, I don't know, they're about as important as, like, Carve and Spit is for a Dark Knight. If it suddenly was gone, you just wouldn't use it. I mean, that's all that would happen, is that you would just not use it because it wouldn't be there. And the thing is that Dragonfire Dive is the level 50 attack, right? So that, once upon a time, was the big, like, finale attack that you unlocked at level 50. Like, that was your Wormwind Thrust or your Stardiver. But now you have Stardiver and Wormwind Thrust, which means that Dragonfire Dive is just kind of there, right? It's there. It's good. But it's just kind of there. And that's actually, like, that's the thing with making an attack for the express purpose of being, like, the big finishing move of a job, if you build on that, like if you build on the job and add a new move that is an even more ultimate attack, then your existing ultimate attack kinda, you know, becomes bad. Oh, she says in-game. I thought guys said carb on spit. That is an interesting move. Yeah. Carve and spit is also a weird attack name, actually. Oh, I could have life surged there. Oh, someone's attacking the ad. Then we kill the ad. So I've talked about this before, is that if your team can deal with it, like if you're not making any like crucial mistakes on this fight and like eating a ton of vulnerability stacks, then the ads exploding, like self-destructing, are almost a non-issue. Like they deal negligible damage and give you a vuln stack, which is hilarious considering that they're using self-destruct and that's all it amounts to, right? But basically, if anyone in your group bothers to kill them, then I prefer to just kill them, because then you free up that person to attack the boss. It's just easy, and it's also the fact that if anyone's putting in the effort to kill the ad, then that effort is wasted, like if it doesn't get killed in time. And on top of that, that means that you're going to get that vuln stack anyway, and you don't, like, you have less damage gained to show for it. So it's just better to just go, no, we're just killing the ad then. In my opinion. So that's why I do that. I will use Limit Break now, because I'm going to use my damage buffs and stuff now. I didn't even get to start either. Whoops. Nice. But yeah, point is, so the thing is that Dragoon is in an awkward spot as it is, because a lot of players are playing Dragoon because they like the way it is, right? They like that it is the way that it is, with a lot of OGCDs and stuff. And you can't really change that to, like, without alienating the people that are playing the job because they like the job, right? But the counter argument is that if you had less OGCDs, or if some of the OGCDs were made into a GCD, then you might have stronger attacks. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of Dragoons would appreciate if Stardiver did, like, just half the damage it looks like it's supposed to be doing, right? Hey Gazel, I hope you're doing well. Right. So next one is 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh. It's kind of funny. I'm pretty sure Shade hadn't actually zoned in while they were in the chat. Umia says I forgot to expedient. You know, that actually happens to me a lot as well with Scholar. Like I've done dungeons specifically, like a dungeon to record Scholar footage for a guide. And then I remember that I haven't used expedient yet by like the last trash pack in the dungeon, like, oh yeah. So that kind of just happens sometimes. Yeah, I've also said previously that, and I usually say that with a job like Dragoon, is that I can say all I want on my wish list of what I would like to see Dragoon get, but from my perspective, the things that I look for that I would like Dragoon to have is like more produced as like, I think this is what Dragoon players might like, because I'm not really a Dragoon main. So, like, if someone with the authority to make a change came in and said, Kai, what should Dragoon change? Like, what should we change about Dragoon? I would say, don't ask me, because I don't even main the job. Like, the best I could do is say what I would like it to have for me to play it, but I might still not play it. So that, like, that's not good. That's like, like when Summoner was reworked, I felt like I was in a better position to comment on that because I was actually a Summoner main at the time. And the thing is that I was a Summoner main despite having a lot of gripes with how the job worked. Like, oh, this isn't working well, this isn't right, why do we have this? They should, like, fix it somehow, because it feels like it's trying to do too many things. And then they fixed it. And the thing is, a lot of players hated that. A lot of Summoner players hated that because they made it too simple. They liked Summoner because it was complicated. Now, you could argue that if you're playing a job just because it's complicated, you can just jump to a different complicated job. But they wanted Summoner, right? So I already wrote it in the chat, but I see we are a lot of people here. Is there anyone that specifically would like to join for 50, 60, 70, 80 roulette in my group? Like, should we mix up the groups, or does no one care which group they're in? Gasol says, I can't forget about it since I have time. I have to time it before the tank uses sprint. Oh yeah. Well, Lemon, we're 8 people. There are 2 full group. Like, there's 2 light parties to be made. So now we're missing someone. Fine, I'll do it myself. Can you play some... Excellent. Perfect. As I said before, Hoshin specifically requested being Dark Knight. Fishbird says Crystal Tower roulette days are numbered. So I made a whole video on the Crystal Tower roulette problem. Let me put it like this. If you have one person out of the 24 players that is level 50 to 59, then it's still Crystal Tower roulette. Most of the roulette, like most of these daily roulette streams that I've done here has been Crystal Tower roulette because we had 8 players and one of them was level 50 or 59. It was rarely ever because there wasn't like unlocked raids. It was usually a level issue. Like usually it was a level issue and nothing else. That's why. So the thing is, because of the amount of suggestions that I received through that video, I am like my suggestion that I think would actually work best for fixing Crystal Tower roulette problem is you need to put Crystal Tower on a separate roulette. Like you need to make a Crystal Tower roulette specifically and then have the rest of the alliance raids elsewhere. Because it's simply too it's too much. Like there's too many things that you'd want to do Crystal Tower for. There's too many people that would genuinely want to do Crystal Tower, and it's not just for the dailies. Like there are multiple relic weapons that you would want to do like just Crystal Tower alliance raids for repeatedly. And then there's the fact that it's level 50 to 59. It's just too much. Like, yes, the main scenario quest relevancy part also matters, but primarily the problem is that there's too many reasons to want to do Crystal Tower. So I think the most effective solution would be to just remove it from the equation by putting it in a separate roulette. But what we're getting is, for those that don't know, I can't remember if it's 6.5 that's adding it or if it's later, but there's going to come an item level requirement based on your level. So if you're level 60 plus, you're basically going to be required to have the item level to enter Void Ark and things like that. I don't know if they're then also going to require that you have actually unlocked Void Ark, but one thing at a time, right? One thing at a time. Also, the reason why everyone else was getting the Snowdrift debuff and I wasn't is because I was moving. You just had to always be moving on that fight. Just run all the time. Then you don't get the debuff. It's pretty funny. Fishbread says, so once you hit level 60, your character needs to meet level 60 alliance rate requirements to queue. I think, like, they haven't actually said what it means. They just said that there would be an item level requirement. The thing is that, because that's all we were told, that means, like, that doesn't imply that you would have to actually unlock the level 60 alliance rates. But if that isn't part of it, then that would actually give people reason to not unlock the level 60 alliance raids, because that would be the only way to avoid getting them in the first place, right? By just not having them unlocked. Ultimate galaxy brain move, right? Just don't unlock the raid, then you can't get it. Let's not fight the mobs while standing in the wind. The wind hurts, it's not just cosmetic. It's very, 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 very painful. Wink. Snowcloak is actually an excellent example in a dungeon with, like, just not very obvious mechanics. Like, unless you're actively looking at your debuffs, it's very easy to miss that the wind over there actually hurts you. That it should really have like a telegraph showcasing that it's hurting you. And the boss doesn't really explain why you're getting the debuff stacks, even though it's as simple as you're getting it because you're standing still. Yeah, you might be right, Tristan, that it's just like in general, like, as I said, and I'm always willing to like trust them on it. Like, I'm not the kind of person to say that the developers don't know what they're doing. I genuinely think that they do know what they're doing, because how else would they get to the point that they are now if they didn't know what they were doing? So I'm pretty confident that they know that if they instate an item level requirement, but not a requirement to actually unlock the alliance rates in the first place, then it's not actually going to help anyone. Like, I'm assuming that they already know that. But I'm still bringing it up because some people are hearing that there's coming an item level requirement, and the thing is, it will help. It will help. Absolutely, it will help. But the gear cheeser players are only a portion of the players in Alliance Raid Roulette. Like, it's just some of them. But as I said, something is better than nothing, right? My original perspective on it was also that it was better to increase the rewards on the higher level alliance raids than force people to do the higher level ones. Like, better to give a reward than punish. I also agree with Gazel that says, I wish the roulette reward would be better if it won't be Crystal Tower only anymore. Yeah, that is exactly also what I said in that video, is that there's a lot of players that view the Alliance Raid Roulette as, if I don't get Crystal Tower, then it isn't actually worth it. Like, the reward isn't good enough for the time it takes if it isn't Crystal Tower, because the reward isn't that impressive. It's just better than some other things. There's a lot that can be done, but I think a key thing that we might also be forgetting when talking about these things, and also that I'm actually forgetting now that I think about it, is the daily roulettes. Like, they're there to give you something to do, because players typically won't do anything in MMOs. Like, a lot of players will not do anything if there isn't a reward or a reason to do it. So you put out daily. The daily doesn't have to be like a huge reward. It just has to be enough that it looks nice, but it doesn't have to be incredibly impressive. Our single target damage is crazy. Hey, Asian. Yeah, that is the the problem is that you can do a lot of things. You can do a lot of things to the Alliance Raid Roulette. But right now, it's in like a sweet spot of a bunch of things, and where people are where a significant portion of players are willing to do it because of Crystal Tower being so reliable. So if they change a single component in that sweet spot system, then people might stop queuing for it. Like, the danger in forcing players to do the to queue for the higher level roulettes as well, and not being able to cheese it, is that it risks making it so that people that were queuing specifically for the Crystal Tower ones will stop queuing altogether, which might significantly increase the queue time. Which is bad, because Crystal Tower is mandatory for some players. Like, new players have to do it, mandatory the first time. So that's not good. But if you increase the reward, then people might do it. Like, they'll go, well, if I don't get Crystal Tower, then, I mean, it's not bad because the reward is kind of good anyway. But I think part of the problem there is that, how can I say it? If you doubled the Alliance Raid reward, then players would still look at it and go, well, if I get Crystal Tower, then the reward is incredibly good. If I get not Crystal Tower, then the reward is worse. Because the problem then isn't actually Crystal Tower or the reward. The problem is that, well, the problem is that Crystal Tower is faster than all the other ones. Oh yeah, we had a limit break. Thank you. But yeah, let's say, hypothetically, that they doubled the Alliance Raid reward. Like, it became 240, 240, and 100, right? And this also becomes like 14,000 and 2 of these and 4 of these. Like, everything, just double it up. Then everyone who does Alliance Raid Roulette would still be equally as inclined to do Crystal Tower specifically, because why would you want to do near raid when you could do Crystal Tower? Like, it's going to be like a magnitude of like 3 or 4, depending on your group, of time that you need to invest to get that. So if you're not there for the glam, then what you're looking at is a dice roll. Maybe you get all of that, double this, for 40 minutes of effort, or you get it for 10 to 15 minutes of effort. It's pretty huge of a difference. So what I'm getting at is that the real problem is that Crystal Tower is too short. that is ultimately the problem, isn't it? Ashutosh says your video voice and the actual voice sound so different. Well, it's a lot harder to put on like a very specific, like to really like do the perfect radio voice while also trying to be entertaining and funny in real time. I hope the voice difference isn't too alienating. But yeah, I think that's the problem. Is more so that the time difference between the alliance rates is too long. Like, part of the reason why I don't like queuing for Mentor Roulette is similar to that. So Mentor Roulette, those that don't know, you have to queue alone. Mentor Roulette can include all of these, all of them, every single one of them. Which means that sometimes you queue for Mentor Roulette and you get Sastasha and it takes like 10 minutes. Sometimes you queue for Mentor Roulette and you get Keeper of the Lake and it takes like 15 minutes. Or sometimes you queue for Mentor Roulette and, oh, I don't know, you get Howling Eye Extreme and maybe it takes 30 or 40 minutes and you beat it. Maybe. Or maybe you get like Sephiroth Extreme and you wipe for an hour, which means that when you queue for Mentor Roulette, I mean, you could also get Bowl of Embers normal, which takes like 3 minutes. So if you queue for a roulette and the time investment is anywhere between 3 minutes and an hour, how often do you know that you have an hour if you're queuing for something that might take 3 minutes? Like, that used to be a problem for me, like, over a decade ago when I played League of Legends. It was like, a match might take 20 minutes, it might take an hour, so you kind of had to have an hour on hand of uninterrupted time before you queue, but often it isn't an hour, right? So it might be fine, right? And then it isn't. Ashutosh says, I was watching your video of leveling guide. You said the trinket for pre-ordering expansion. Like, yeah, oh yeah, the earring. Yeah, this one. Was for pre-ordering the expansion. I believe it was for pre-ordering. I think it also counted, even if you like pre-ordered it a day before or something like that. It says, will we get something similar like that for next expansion? Probably. I would assume that we do. In Shadowbringers we got an earring just like this one. Let me just see if I can find it. But I'm almost certain that we will probably get an earring again, because that has become like the standard now. No, there it is. See, so this was the one for Shadowbringers, exactly the same, just lower item level, same effect, everything. So yeah, we probably will get an exactly identical one, just at the scale, like, gives you the 30% XP bonus up to level 90, and it scales up to an item level that is relevant up to level 90 instead. I'm pretty confident we will. The question is when the pre-order will open. I'm pretty sure it hasn't opened yet, right? I'm pretty sure I haven't missed anything about that, right? You know, Hoshi, that is even more interesting because Endwalker had, like, was it 2 weeks delay suddenly? But yeah, so my point that I was talking about before with the alliance rates is the problem with Crystal Tower is that it's too short relative to the other ones. Like, if you're queuing for alliance raid as level 90 without gear cheesing, then it might take anywhere between like 15 minutes and 45 minutes, depending on which alliance raid you get. if you gear cheese and make sure you get Crystal Tower, then it will take 15 minutes, maybe 20. But that's like a lot more manageable, especially if the reward is exactly the same, right? Then why bother? It's not exactly the same. Apparently you get more XP for the higher level ones, and that actually scales. But if you're level 90, then you have no reason to queue, like, efficiency-wise. Like, this is really important to keep in mind. If we're taking the position of, I don't care about fun, I'm not here to have fun, I'm here to grind and be efficient, that is the only thing I'm doing, then queuing for Alliance Raid and getting the near raid as level 90, unless you want the Glamour there, then it's objectively worse than getting Crystal Tower, because the only thing you're getting is more time spent, which you wouldn't want. Now, if you add the part where you like to have fun, then arguably the near raids might be more entertaining than the Crystal Tower raids. Hoshi says, I really hope no one plays this game without having fun. That sounds so boring. It's complicated, but there are absolutely players that play the game forgetting to have fun. Case in point, when in those comments on that Crystal Tower video, where someone suggested maybe we should have a Crystal Tower roulette separately from the other roulettes, I'm not joking, I'm not making this up. Someone responded to that saying that would be a terrible idea, because then you would be forcing players to play more content. You would be forcing players to do even more content, and not only that, now you would be forcing them to do Crystal Tower and also another Alliance raid. Like, if we just take a moment to step back and remember the whole point was to remove Crystal Tower from the other Alliance raids. This means that if you have a Crystal Tower roulette and an Alliance raid roulette, then the players that just want to do Crystal Tower roulette, they can do that. The players that don't want Crystal Tower roulette can do that. And the players that want both can do both. Incredible, but then someone said, but the players that don't want to do both, but want to be efficient, will feel like they have to do both, which is interesting. Hey Snow Dragon, I hope you're doing well. Exactly, fish bread. Those that don't mind either will get more rewards. It's really funny that the suggestion was the person was mad because they were like, no, if you add another roulette, then it means I have to play more every day, forgetting the part where it's optional. It's optional. Right, so we have leveling roulette. We could do like this. We could also switch things up. We are still 8 here, right? Wait, who left? Who left? Orion left. Oh, right. I was like, I couldn't remember who was Asrita Ilmia, but that's true. That's your that's your bunny. Right. So if we do the leveling roulette, then our two groups can merge for the 8-man content. How about that? But yeah, I think it's funny that there is a lot of there's so much content in Final Fantasy XIV that people are unwilling to do because it doesn't give any rewards. Like, genuinely, I think I talked about this recently as well, that people were like, oh, it's such a shame that the Criterion dungeons, the first Criterion dungeons people spoke about specifically. Oh, level 20, because I forgot to set it to limited. Oops. I don't think we can abandon, so I guess we'll just have to do it. I'm sorry. Don't hurt me, Coco. Don't hurt me. No, 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 no one's leaving. Don't leave. Do not leave. That's why I'm saying we have to stay. Never says, do I even have skills? Oh, you have Rampart. And Arm's Length. You have defensive cooldowns. Just barely. You also have imagine having AoE attacks. Am I right, guys? Imagine having a damage buff. Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I do have a damage buff. I was thinking about Lance Charge. Well, at least we have some ridiculous single target damage with Samurai. You know, Fishbread, in my opinion, Scholar is the most overpowered of all the healers until like at least level 60, if not 70. Like, for some reason the pet just ultra carries you all the way. Like, yeah, you can use Lustrate, but you barely need to. And just spam out of war all day. And yeah, you could argue that Sage catches up around around level 50s and 60s, but I mean, Sage starts at 70. Does it even count? Gassel says you need to start to do actual healing around level 40, even with Scholar. That's true. If the tank pulls like you have the healing power that you have, then you might. Oh. Oh. Yeah, if your tank is pulling like you're a Scholar, then you probably don't need to do you probably do need to do more. If your tank is pulling like you're not a Scholar, then you might not need to do anything. And then you can just do book smacks and ruin spam. What a random thing to target me with. Ow. Gazel says, I hate it when the tank starts doing big pulls just because my first Adocurium was a crit. It would be fine if all my Adocuriums crits. Well, from my experience, if I'm Scholar in like a low-level dungeon, even something like Stone Vigil, if I can get Adocurium up and I can keep up with the tank, like run alongside them. Oh, we missed Coco. It's the many jumps. Yeah, if I'm playing Scholar in like something like Stone Vigil with some mean pulls in it, like that the tank can take if they feel like it. If I'm a Scholar, then I'm typically fine with it because the pet is so ridiculous. But if I was any other healer, even Sage, then I would be a lot less... I would be a lot more scared of, like, mega pulls. Specifically because the key problem, especially in, like, low-level dungeons where you don't really have any ability healing, is that you can't really do any healing while running with the tank. And something like Stone Vigil, the thing that makes the pulls really rough there, is that there's a lot of running. Like, a lot of running between the pulls, so your tank might need a lot of help staying alive as they're pulling everything. And then also the part, as Fishbread said, if you reach a point in a fight where you have to use Adocurium to help the tank, then your pet is still healing. Whereas if you're Sage and you reach that point where you have to start spamming shields and diagnosis, then your cardia stops working. So that is also a very good point. Like, Scholar has the most healing there of the two, simply because of that. And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, and a 2, and a 1, and a 2. Oh, look, loot. Coco says you get to press 2. Don't you have arrow, Coco? Gazum says, is this boss difficult for melee? Seems quite hard to do the positionals there. The slime boss we just did? Did you mean the slime boss? I think these are skippable. In this dungeon, the only DPS that has positionals at all is actually Monk. I'm pretty sure they have Snap Punch. I don't know if that would be difficult. It might be a little bit annoying because of how much potency Snap Punch loses from it, but I don't think it's too big of a problem. But I can see what you mean. And Fishbread, I think a lot of players actually forget about Ether Pact. It can even be difficult sometimes to even find a use of Ether Pact in like a raid setting, for example. Because you need to like find a single target that needs healing, and usually the tank won't need it. So you're just like, I'm usually using it when someone gets hit by a mechanic they shouldn't. So you know, there's a single person that needs a lot of healing. Yeah, that's true. If Ether Pact was more like immediate feedback, it would be easier to like quantify its helpfulness, which would make it easier to like figure out when you should use it. I can see what you mean. In Shadowbringers, they actually seem to have an idea on that, because Fey Blessing actually cost Ether Pact, cost Fairy Gauge, if I remember correctly. Cost like 10. So it was like it's always the thing you're using. If like if you need to use Fairy Gauge for anything, you're using it on Fey Blessing. But the fact that it already had like a minute cooldown and then cost like 10 didn't really it didn't really add anything, right? It was just of course you have 10 Fairy Gauge, and if you don't, you just Indomitability and then Fey Blessing if you need it. It's similar to how I believe in Stormblood, Ninja, their Tenchi Jin actually cost 50 Ninki. But the thing is, in Stormblood, you didn't have Bunshin. And I don't believe you generated nearly as quickly Ninki, so it was less of an issue. Like that, like you just had more Ninki, like you would just sit on 50 for Tenchi Jin, but it was absolutely a thing that it cost 50, because otherwise you just had Bahava Chakra and Health Rock Medium. It's a little weird, right? Miral says, as someone who leveled all the casters, I find the melee DPS rotation quite difficult. Rust says, did Mog not give 40 Ninki back then? It might. It probably did. But you didn't have this or this. So, for the most part, you generated 5 Ninki per GCD, and that's it. That was everything. And then you got 40 from Mug, which incidentally lined up with Tenchi Jin, so that also solved that problem, right? Which is probably part of the reason why they removed the Ninki cost from Tenchi Jin and put it on Bunshin, and then put Bunshin on a 90-second cooldown, so it doesn't line up with Mug, so that there was actually some gameplay around it. I think that might be it. Mural says, I was leveling Dragoon. When I got around level 70, it got kind of overwhelming. Yeah, that happens. That happens. Snowdragon asks, is anyone going to play the new Gold Saucer game when it comes out? Yes. I could imagine that we might be playing it on stream when it comes out. Wouldn't that be fun? We can play Fall Guys and Final Fantasy XIV. I think that would be a great stream. Just, like, I really hope that it's something you can just queue into, and it's not like, oh, it happens once every hour or something like that. If you can just queue into it, then we're doing that. Absolutely doing that. Just queue in as many people as we can and just go for it. I would do that. I think it would be fun. I love those mini games. Gasol says, I wonder will it stay? That is a good question. I would guess that it does, because the Fall Guys skins are probably staying, right? And that it looks like there are quite a lot of them. So surely that's staying. Like with the Monster Hunter collab, Monster Hunter World still has Behemoth. It's still there. And we still have Rathalos. I would imagine that they're staying. Hey Jet, I hope you're doing well. Yeah, I would do it. And then hopefully the mode stays. Hopefully. Right, so we're just waiting for the other leveling roulette group. Fishbread says Tornado Kick and Phantom Rush being targeted AoEs when all the other Masterful Blitzes aren't is pain? What? Weird. How weird. I never noticed that. It has never come up as significant, like ever. I've never needed to do that, like to use it without a target. And they still have, you know, a primary target damage. How strange. Snowdragon says, does the monk still have the Firebird effect? Oh yeah, as you can see, we have the Rising Phoenix. You need to turn on Caster Brain to hit as many as you can. Well, the important thing is ultimately that you can stand in the middle. You can just stand in the middle of the pack, which a caster might not be able to. Jet Erickson says, I come to say hi after a devastating loss on floor 169. Nice. Of a Palace of the Dead solo run. Not nice. That sucks. That always sucks. The worst part is that now you have to do like 100 floors of just prep work, and then you get to the slightly challenging bit, and then there's like, and that's like another 50 floors, and then you get to the hard bit, and then like it starts getting difficult. But that's like 150 floors of kind of... Exactly, 150 floors until it's pretty again. That is true. Moku Stabby says, what are your thoughts on cross data center travel and its effect on party finder rating? I'm on Primal or Leviathan myself, or Primal Leviathan myself, and have to travel to either just to find a party finder group for Savage. I'm in EU, and in EU we don't really have that problem. Like, as far as I know, neither Light or Chaos is known to be like the vastly superior Savage rating data centers, so people sort of tend to just make their party finder groups where they happen to be. One of them might have slightly more, but it's not nearly as big of an issue. I know in NA, it's like there's this one data center where everyone congregates to do their Savage rating. On one hand, it's good, because it means that you just go to either, problem solved, right? There's no looking around because it's there. It's going to be on ether. Like, the reason why I don't go and check Light is because, as far as I'm aware, there's going to be like equally many between Chaos and Light, which means, and there's the downside of having like not a like centralized like Savage raiding data center, is that if I open Party Finder, half of the Savage Raiders Party Finder groups will probably be here, whereas the other half will be on Light. Whereas on NA, you just go to Ether and you get like 95% of all of the Savage Raid groups, right? So that might be a good thing. Like, that might actually be a good thing. But it sucks that you have to leave home, right? It sucks that you have to leave home to do it. Yeah, so I kind of get it. There's also a lot of things that don't, like, as far as I know, you can't, like, I haven't tested this, but I'm pretty sure you cannot use, like, you cannot join a link shell from a different data center, which means that you will never be able to, like, join a link shell with the Party Finder groups you find on Ether. Maybe you can join their Discord server, but some people might find that a little bit too much. So I think that might be a thing. I don't know. Like, the thing is, I don't mind data center travel. I think overall it's a good thing. In fact, welcome to Kazuchaiji channel. This is Worldwide Data Center Travel Waiting Room. Welcome. Rost and Gassel says, cross-welding shells work, they just require you to be on the data center it was made on. Oh, okay. Well, there you go, then that works. The difficult part there then is that, let's say, so if I was in a link shell, like a Savage raiding link shell, I actually was in one for a short period. So I was like an extra, like they liked me, so like they invited me to the link shells that maybe I could fill in if they were missing someone. I never did, because stuff came in the way. But because of that, because they were on Chaos, I could just join it, and then if I happened to be online and they needed someone, I would see it and I could react. If you have the Crossworld link shell on Ether, but you're not normally on Ether, then you will never land in this position. It's like a minor thing, but it's like annoying in the same way that you can't see when your friends log in, but you can see when your free company logs in, right? You know what I mean? It's annoying like that. That's what I think. I don't know if that's the reason. I don't know your friends, of course, but I would guess that it might be something like that. It's like it's a bunch of small things that are just like just a little annoying, that just adds up, and then they really don't like it. But it's not something that like ruins it. It's just a little annoying. Like, it's like, I can see why it would be annoying, but ultimately having the Savage raiding scene centered on a specific data center in your region makes it easier to find everyone. Sasquatches are the worst things in existence. Is that the monkey things, the gorilla things? The ones that just give you random vulnerability stacks? See, Tristan said, I noticed the weird targeting when I accidentally used it when things died. Luckily, it still gives the nutty, but waste of potency. Yeah, exactly. Emir says, why can't I make that face work on my characters? My face? My face? I don't know. I think I've met one person that looked almost identical to my character because they had the same face and had almost all of the same choices besides that. But let me put it like this. I made this character in 2017, I'm pretty sure it was. And I don't remember the process. I'm pretty sure that it took me less than 10 minutes to make the character from start to finish. Just, oh, yep, that's good, yep, nice, perfect. And just move on with it, right? So I don't know. But I do know that a lot of people that have this face, like, as their starting point, tend to look, I don't know, they all often look very similar. Like, very, 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 very similar. But I don't know why. Because I haven't made an aura in 6 years, right? Mogustabi says, I wish I would come to EU and run some content with you. Yeah, exactly. When are we getting... Like, actually, I think I read yesterday that Yoshi P had talked about it again. That the worries is that there's both the technical side... there's both the technical side, and then there's also the part that there's the concern that each region has like its own sort of community. This was something that I believe the JPE region felt, especially when they made, you know, regional data center travel, because one of the regions the regions alone were different. Or rather, the data centers in each region were different, such that when they made it like region-wide, the data center that housed most of the English-speaking players on the Japanese region suddenly visited the ones that didn't, which has caused some interesting problems separately. Shade says, for Aura, it's the horns. You can tell the face they use on their horns they have without seeing the face at all. Okay, tell me, does Lemon and I look identical, or do we look different? Trying to figure out where to start it. Because we have the same horns, right? So we should look the same. We look similar, but to me, our eyes are significantly different and our mouths are significantly different. And the shade says the same thing. The face, like the base, is the same, but the mouth and the eyes are part of the face. Which is why they look so different. We also have different scales, which also makes the face look different. Even if you know that the base facial structure is the same because it's connected to the horns. Zooming out, and then there's just like, yes, the judge panel will see you now. Yeah, I do agree that it would be nice if you could choose, like, if features weren't as, like, connected to each other like that. Like, it would be nice if they were separate, but I can see why some races might have them connected. Not sure why, but I guess there's a technicality there. But I feel that my character's face looks significantly different than many of the other people with those horns that I see. Although, I don't see that many people with those horns. Possibly because they run into the same problem that Ymir said, that they can't make the face work. I just like those horns. I call them scaly phones. Fishbird says, I wish there were less height 0 bust 100 order. I don't know what I even chose for bust. So I don't even know if that is max or minimum or anything in between. And I think it was the same thing for me, Hoshi. That I just randomly got exactly what I wanted. Right. Orion says, I'm sure there's some people with mods out there. Orion, those with mods aren't running height 0 bust 200. They're running height 0 bust, like, it's just like, you just like grab like the scale and just go, and then it just like kind of goes off the screen. I don't know why you would do that. It looks ridiculous if you do that. But someone would do that. 100%. Right. So. Times a million. Trial is next. Yeah, exactly, Fishbread. How are they going to run? Ryan says, I've got a comment from someone that my glam looked nice, and I'm like, it's the maid costume from Mog Station. Not like I put a lot of work in it. I can see what you mean there. I think what they mean when they say that is, like, they just say your glam looks nice. I'm pretty sure what they mean when they say that is your glam looks nice on your character. Like, your glam looks good as like the complete package. Like, if they put on the maid outfit, it might not look as good, right? I think that's what they mean. It's okay, Lemon. You can still rejoice in the glory of combat from a distance, if you like.
Furious as a blaze.
And Stormblood, your first trial is like a primal that is like, that really likes to fight. Like both of them. Just a weird coincidence, maybe. We don't exactly have that in the same way in Shadowbringers or Endwalker. Oof. Take wing, you souls of war! I've actually managed to wipe on this fight because people weren't respecting the souls of war. I just ignored them, thought, someone else will deal with it probably. And they didn't. I think I was tanking, so I couldn't really just herd the boss around chasing butterflies. Fishbird says, ignoring mechanics is a casual player's favorite pastime. And I am one of those casual players. The thing is that it is kind of... It's not bad. It's not bad if it's something that you can like... You can like finesse through. Like if you play well enough, you can carry. What happened? Oh, did someone do single target dots on there? Did Coco spot a single target dot on? Was that a single target dot on? Oh look, there's a single target dot on. I didn't see who did it. Nice. So, single target dot on. Why is that a problem? Let's talk about that very, very quickly. So, at level 50, and at level 90 actually, Raiton does 650 potency. Right? So 650 like that. Doton does 560 potency. But here's the thing. Doton is extremely confusing because, now, if we read the tooltip, it says it does 80 potency. And then it says it has an 18-second duration. What does that mean? Well, normally dots deal damage every 3 seconds. So, Doton hits 6 times, right? But that's 480 potency. However, Doton and all ground-targeted AoEs like Doton hit an extra time when you place them. Just a bonus one, just on the house. You don't even have to put it on the house to get it. You just get an extra freebie smack right when you place it. So it's actually 560 potency. But Raiton does 650. So that's why single target Doton is funny. It's especially funny because in Shadowbringers, single target Doton was a DPS increase. That's why people do it typically. It's because it used to be good. It used to be right. And it's weird that you would use like two Mudra spells when you have 3 Mudra spells. Like, it feels intuitive that you use the big spells when you can, right? But Doton is objectively worse than Raiton on single target. Which is why I say, haha, single target Doton. It's not a big deal. It's a minor thing. But it's funny. I didn't even see who did it. So I'm just like saying it in the stream so that whoever did it knows. Hoshi says, I was 2 days years old when I noticed that Salted Earth deals damage and is not just a damage or defensive buff for the Dark Knight. Salted Earth doesn't even do anything for the Dark Knight aside from damage. It's just damage. Shade says, I've seen Savage ninjas use single target dots on. Well, in the open, like before pull, there might be like some shenanigans, but that's like, even that is dubious. But the thing is, being a Savage Raider does not actually mean that you know what you're doing. There is no license to become Savage Raider. All it takes is that you unlock it, do this, and then click on a party and click join, and then not get kicked. Now you're a Savage Raider. So if like being a Savage Raider doesn't mean that you know what you're doing. I've mentioned this before, but I had a friend who had done multiple ultimates, like actually done them, that didn't know sprint lasts twice as long if you use it while not in combat. They didn't realize that there was a difference. Like, that is probably one of the best examples of it does not matter what you've cleared. You might not know everything. Case in point, single target dodson is a mistake. Especially if you're a Savage Raider. Especially if you're a Savage Raider. There might be like a specific, like super specific thing in that fight where dodson on single target is good for some reason, but I can't possibly imagine what that would be. Especially at max level. At max level, 2 target dodson is a mistake. Matthew J says, am I being called out? No. Umi just asked who you are. Like, in-game. And exactly, Rust. If you're an ultimate raider, sprint lasting longer while not in combat doesn't do anything. Like, it only matters if you're doing, like, dungeons and trying to do them quickly. Like, that's really when it matters. Fishbread says, some max level black mages still use transpose. That is a different story. That is actually optimization. They've found tricks to use transpose for damage gain. It's really weird. It's called transpose lines. There's like small articles on it, you could say, like guides on their own. Like, imagine that you see like a 20-minute job guide for Black Mage, and then there's a 20-minute guide on the transpose lines separately as like extra reading material. The particularly simplest, easiest transpose line is if you get a Firestarter proc, you know, you use Fire 1 in between your Fire 4s, you get a Firestarter proc. Instead of just like throwing it at the boss, you save it because it lasts like 40 seconds. When you get into your ice mode, you use, you know, Blizzard 3, Blizzard 4, you might even use Xenoglossy, you refresh your Thunder, then you use Paradox, which is instant, you have full mana, everything, then you go Paradox, Transpose, Fire 3, instant Fire 3. Why would you do that? Because a 1 Astral Fire 3 Fire 3 is, and a Umbral Ice 3 Fire 3 combined is not as good as an Astral Fire 1 Fire 3, because it wastes time to do 2 of them, and Fire 3 is worse than Fire 4. Like, those kinds of logic. Doing that consistently over the course of a fight, I believe that the big brains that calculated it came up to the conclusion that using this transpose line does 0.9% more DPS than just throwing the Firestarter proc when you get it. Or rather, does it's the whole transpose line stuff is complicated. There's a lot. There's a lot to think about, but if you just do the that single transpose line, that simple one, that one puts your Firestarter proc to good use rather than just throwing it because you can. But there's more to think about, because what if you want to use, like, what if you need that Fire 3 while you're running? So it's complicated. But yeah, thou shalt not use AoE on single target. Using Fire 2 and then Fire 3 like that is not a good idea. That is not recommended. Ross says, I remember seeing a graphic for transpose lines at one point and I just thought to myself, I'm just gonna Fire 4. The weirdest ones are the transpose lines that are like, okay, so what you do is, so you use Despair in like an instant cast, so like you use Swift cast Despair, and then you use Transpose so that you're in ice mode, and then you use like Blizzard 4 so that you get more Umbral Hearts. And because you use Transpose while in Astral Fire 3, you get Paradox. You can use Paradox, and then maybe you get 2 MP ticks, and then you transpose back into Fire again, and then you use your Firestarter proc. And I'm just sitting there like, how much better is that than just playing normally? How much better is that than playing normally? Because that seems ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous. And then that is also a good example, Rust. Saving Firestarter when you get it so that you have it in case you need to like refresh your Astral Fire in the middle of it because things happen. That is also a reason to not use it immediately. Just, you know, in case you need it. Like, there's a lot of reasons why it's complicated with all this transpose line stuff. But, like, often when people talk about the difficulty of Black Mage, they are not really talking about, like, the not being very mobile or the weirdness of the rotation itself. They're usually talking about transpose lines. Uh-oh. Wait, is this the lava floor guy again? Oh boy. So do you remember how to do it? Right. So one tank needs to go and like put the power generator things on the like robot corpses that are not on the quarter that is going to become lava, and then move them over there and then kill them there. When the big ad drops down, you have to kite it around the room and fight it, until it dies, in which case you want it to drop in the lava. But it must not drop in the lava if it's not dead, because then we immediately wipe. And the reason why the power generator stuff becomes a tank problem is because when you wake up the ad, it will attack the person that woke it up with a power generator. So and it's fixated, so you need the tank to do it. You need the tank to be the one that does it. And you just need one tank to do it. The other tank pretty much just needs to kind of stand still and fight the boss. Right, so the big spider bot there you can just leave alone because it's already dead. Don't worry about picking up the ads after you put down the power generator thing, Hoshi. They will chase you. They will fixate you and chase you to the ends of the earth because you had the audacity to wake them up. Don't worry about that. They'll come to you. So you just like put down the power generators and then you just run over where you want them. Spider-bot? Yeah. Who dares disturb my slumber? I was sleeping so soundly in this room with not noise. Does that wake all of them? Oh, it does. Excellent. This floor is going to be deleted. Oh dear. Yeah, it's a really weird boss because it has those mechanics, and because it's a normal raid, it's pretty common that, you know, if you somehow randomly manage to kill the boss, then you don't learn, right? That's the scary thing, is that the reason why a lot of players don't know how the fight works is because you can actually, like, it doesn't even have to be a tank that deals with the mechanic. A DPS can do it. So, from the perspective of a group that beats the fight, it feels like the boss just kind of died, right? Just weirdly just died from something unexplained. And then the next time they go, the same mechanics don't happen because they don't realize why each thing happened. Uh-oh. Alright, so the boss is taking nearly no damage until that thing... Ymir, move. Run. As long as the robot thing is on the platform, and it's going to go away all on its own. When that's away, the boss will take damage again. That is no one's mistake. That is like, we did it the safe way instead of someone like rushing over, someone being me, rushing over to try and pull the ad into the lava and risking wiping. It's better to just let it die and then eventually it'll drop. Like, the thing is, this is a good example of a fight where once that big ad comes down, everything else is second priority, because that is the only thing that can wipe you. You can mess up all of the other ads in this fight. Every single one, but if the big ad is failed, you immediately wipe. So you can just put the entire fight on the back burner, ignore the boss, and just kill that ad, because it has to die. Fishbread says, the way I saw it, the swap did so little damage anyway, and I like High Fire 2's animation more anyway. So the thing is, if you want to spend your Fire starter in Astral Fire 3, just use it before you exit Umbral Ice, or before you exit Astral Fire in the first place. Like, then you don't have to like go this roundabout way and use High Fire 2 so that you can use Fire 3 in Astral Fire, right? And the reason why it matters that you're not using High Fire 2 is because saying, oh, it's fine, the damage is basically the same, is about as good as saying, well, I use Try Disaster as my filler once a minute because it looks cooler than Ruin. The damage is almost nothing to, like, there's almost no difference in the damage, right? It's just 190, right? Meanwhile, Black Mage, the difference is 120. Slightly less because of percentages, but you get the idea. That's why I'm bringing it up as it matters, is because the potency difference is actually significant. It's just that because of the Black Mage having all this juggling with stances and buffs and timers and mana and all that, it becomes very easy to miss that part. Also because often the amount of potency that your attacks actually do feel like it's very different than what it actually is. Like, it's very difficult at a glance to compare Blizzard 4 to Fire 4 because there's like a hidden plus 80% on Fire 4. Like, just that one just does 80% more. Like, you might look at Paradox and say, that's my best spell. Like, it does 500, it's my best spell aside from Xenoglossy. But Paradox does less damage than Fire 4. Because Paradox doesn't do fire damage. 686, is that including the Enochian buffs? Like, I wouldn't include the Enochian buffs because you already have those, you always have those, but with the 80% bonus, Fire 4 is like 550 something, I believe, like just with that compared to Blizzard 4. That's still, you know, 80% more than what Blizzard 4 would do. But then again, Blizzard 4 has a slightly shorter cast time, so how does that play into the calculation? And that's how you get Ice Mages. The reason why I usually don't count the Enochian buff when calculating the potencies of Black Mage is because all of your spells will get the Enochian buff. So if you're comparing the Black Mage's spells against itself, then everything has a 23% bonus, but only the fire spells get an 80% bonus. But if you were to compare potencies to a different job, then the 686 suddenly becomes a lot more significant. I would say. But I get your point. With 23%, doesn't that mean Xenoglossy is over 1000 potency? Do you want to come along for Alliance Raid, Orion? Fishbread says the Enochian buff comes up if you ever see anyone dropping Astral Fire and using Paradox and or Xenoglossy. I mean, yeah, if you accidentally drop your state, then it matters, but I'm reasonably confident without ever looking it up that dropping Astral Fire or Umbral Ice is a mistake. Like, every time. With Enochian and Mayman. Well, is it Mayman Mend or Magic and Mend? Mayman Mend? Mayman Mend. Right. I mean, if you're already counting Enochian, you might as well count that. But yeah, that is true. And it is interesting to see how much potency it can do. I'm the King says, I know this is a Dragoon only stream. Oh, don't worry about it. That's not that's just with the job I'm playing. But I'm looking to get into tanking as a new player. What tank would you recommend? I would recommend either Warrior or Paladin. They're both relatively simple to get into. Paladin has a bit more trouble with defensive cooldowns early on. Warrior has a slightly more involved attack rotation early on. At level 90, Warrior has probably one of the simplest rotations in the game, has one of the best defensive cooldowns in the game. Paladin is also really good, and has a slightly more complicated rotation, but still very simple. And it has a lot of defensive cooldowns as well that are slightly more party focused, with Passage of Arms and Divine Veil. But my recommendation is really Paladin or Warrior. If you don't mind the rotation being slightly more complicated early on, then Warrior. If you're scared of defensive cooldowns being a little bit more lacking early on, then Warrior is also the best pick. If you'd rather have a really simple rotation early on when you're learning tanking, then Paladin is easiest. Like, it's pretty much just a 1-2-3 combo. But yeah, Paladin or Warrior, take your pick. Yeah, potency comparison also gets really ridiculous, because even if you count in all of the buffs and stuff that you have, some jobs just have different scaling. Like, I just want to be clear that Double Down has just out the box a 1200 potency, but if you have a Gunbreaker at the exact same item level as like a Samurai, then Double Down will do less damage than Ogina Mikiri, which is 860, right? It will do less than Hisatsenye as well, which is 860, because scaling. The main reason why I'm not suggesting either Dark Knight or Gunbreaker as a new starting tank is for multiple reasons, Mokostabi. The first reason is that they don't start at level 1. And it might be a good idea to learn tanking from the beginning. The second reason is that both Dark Knight and Gunbreaker are considered the significantly more involved tanks. Like, they're actually way harder to play properly. Without even looking at their defensive cooldowns. Like, we don't even get to the defensive cooldowns. They're more difficult than Paladin and Warrior. That's the reason why I'm not even mentioning them when I'm the King asked. Because they're not easy. Yeah, usually comparing jobs potencies amongst each other is often a complicated game, because the exact damage, like 100 potency for a Gunbreaker is not the same as 100 potency for a White Mage, and is absolutely not the same as 100 potency for a Black Mage, or 100 potency for a Samurai, or a Dragoon. Like, the potencies on job actions are pretty much just to compare to the job itself, which is why things like Maim and Mend are, like, traits that I pretty much just completely ignore that they even exist, because they, like, it only matters to you, because you can't really compare the potencies between jobs. It's interesting to look at, but it's about as good as sometimes when people mention that, oh, this is a X deep damage loss, like specific damage numbers. I always say look at potencies, because the exact number depends on your gear and your item level, how much stats you have. Like, it's complicated, but if you look at potencies and focus on your job, it tends to be more accurate. Mokustabi says, Gunbreaker in particular can be hard to wrap your head around at first. It's very fast-paced and does high damage, which is why a lot of people like it. Actually, all tanks do almost exactly the same DPS. Like, actually, at max level, they do almost exactly the same DPS. So the high damage argument is, it's like saying Warrior does a lot of damage, Paladin also does a lot of damage, Dark Knight also does a lot of damage, and you know what? Gunbreaker does a lot of damage. But yeah, you're saying when scaled down, that is actually true. There are specific level ranges where each tank is superior. For example, there is a level range where I would say that Dark Knight is superior on low level, because they get, you know, when they get Edge of Darkness, for example, they also have a permanent 10% damage buff while they have Edge of Darkness. And they have Blood Weapon. Things like that. So it's complicated. I've looked a lot into this, because I think when I'm playing alone, I sometimes find it fun to like choose the perfect tank or the perfect DPS when queuing for a leveling roulette, where I kind of know what level range I'm going to land in. Like, if I know, oh, we're probably landing in Sastasha, then I'll choose a job that is really, really good in Sastasha, which I would pick probably Gunbreaker for, now that you mention it, because they have self-healing, whereas none of the other tanks do at that level. But that is like a few steps removed from what's an easy job to start, like what's an easy tank to pick up if you're just starting the role, right? But yeah, my point is that all tanks do good damage. At specific level intervals, that's a different story, but all three tanks do good damage at level 90. And you shouldn't pick up a tank because it does good damage at level 60. Yeah, low level, I think the primary things that really makes Gunbreaker stand out is that it gets Danger Zone really early. Oop. It gets Danger Zone really early, and it has no mercy, and then it also has Brutal Shell. So like really early on, you have so many things. But then, as the other tanks start to get tools, it kind of falls behind, like falls more in line compared to like, oh, I'm actually the center for once. I wonder if I'm going to die. Oh, I didn't. Nice. Like my two primary tanks, because I usually play two, right? is usually Paladin and Warrior are those that I play the most. With Warrior being the one that I play the absolute most. But yeah, Paladin I really enjoy. The simplicity of its rotation is a huge part in that. It's also the only job that I have made a level 90 exclusive guide on the channel. So, there's that. I think that should satisfy as a proof that I like the job. That I made a guide for it. It wouldn't surprise me, Mokostabby, if they nerfed Bloodwedding. At least its dungeon potential in next expansion. It wouldn't surprise me if they adjusted that a little bit. I feel like it's a little, just a little broken, just a little bit broken. I remember actually, so like a few weeks before Endwalker came out, there was a leak that involved basically all of the new tooltips for tanks, which of course included Bloodwedding and Nascent Flash. Well, the new Nascent Flash, because they reworked it a little bit. The important thing was in Shadowbringers, Nascent Flash was a lifesteal effect. So like, you know, a percentage of the damage you did healed you, which meant that by like using Nascent Flash specifically within a chaos, you healed for more. So people saw that it was replaced with a 400 cure potency instead and said they're nerfing Nascent Flash. Like, angry, they're nerfing our lifesteal by making it into a fixed heal. Because people read the tooltip, which, you know, says something about 400 potency when the attack successfully connects. What successfully connects mean is difficult to quantify. So people assumed that it was 400 potency period. So like, you use Bloodwedding, you use Decimate, you hit 8 mobs and you heal for 400 cure potency. And they thought that's way worse than doing than like 25% lifesteal just put like, or like instead, because you might have enough targets for 25% lifesteal to be better than 400 cure potency, and it probably would be. Like, what I'm trying to get at is the change to Nascent Flash and Bloodwedding, that they did a cure potency per target, was so obscenely overpowered that people read it and thought, nah, that can't be what they're doing, that can't be what they mean, that has to be one, like just a single heal, because anything else would be overpowered. Like, that would be too good. That can't be it, can it? And turns out it was. Shake It Off is basically just Divine Veil. No. Divine Veil is Shake It Off. Actually, Shake It Off is even more broken than Divine Veil. With the change to Shake It Off, that it also does a heal over time effect, it's actually the closest comparison to what it is Shake It Off is comparable to a neutral sect aspect at Helios. That is, I think that's pretty accurate to what it actually does. A neutral sect aspect at Helios. Because it applies a shield, a heal over time effect, it also does upfront healing. Like, it does everything. I believe it's every 90 seconds, but it's insane. Yeah, you know, now that people are bringing it up, this tank is a little excited. a little excited to be here and tanking. Kasadi says, I got my re-clears done. Nice! Your static skipped 9. Oh. Well, if you don't need any gear from P9, then that's fine. You know, an interesting thing, Mokustabian, that is also part of the reason why I wanted to clarify that Gunbreaker isn't, like, particularly impressive with its damage, is that... so in the previous raid tier, and when I say Gunbreaker isn't particularly impressive with its damage, is not to say that its damage is bad. As I said before, all 4 tanks at max level basically do the same damage, with, like, a very, very small deviation. In the previous raid tier, Dark Knight and Gunbreaker were like the masters. They did the most damage, so they were the best tanks. Now, Warrior and Paladin usually like could counter that by saying, well, our defensive cooldowns are slightly better, so there's still reason to bring us, right? So in this raid tier, allegedly Dark Knight does the least damage of the 4 tanks. Again, the difference is like less than 1%. Maybe it's 1%. The point is, it's so small that it does not matter. But after that, I genuinely saw players go, what's the point of playing Dark Knight when your defensive cooldowns are bad and your damage isn't the best either? Like, what's the point? And the answer is because you like playing Dark Knight. Like, the tanks are good enough that you can play the one you want. Just the one you like. That's all you have to do. Do you like Dark Knight? Good. Main it. So that's why I don't want to put too much emphasis on the damage potential, because it tends to make people forget what actually matters. That is the reason. Like, the thing is that if you're playing a job because it does the most damage, does that mean that you're going to reroll to the job that does the most damage when inevitably a patch changes that in the next patch? Like, are you playing Dark Knight because it's flavor of the month, or are you playing Dark Knight because you like Dark Knight? Hey, Minato! Let's see, Moko said, I remember when the reason Dark Knight was taken is because they had the best magic mitigation. That is also true. That is also why they were really, really good in the last raid series, because there was so much magic damage, and Dark Mind is a thing. But yeah, because Warrior and Paladin, I think, got a slight buff again, and Dark Knight didn't. Dark Knight just felt like a teensy tiny bit behind, and because it's not on top anymore, there are players that played Dark Knight because it was best, that then are mad that it is not best. Minato says, I got a quick question. How long did it take to make your cherry pink theme for Kai and Kai? What do you mean with how long did it take to make? Like, how long it took for me to figure out that I wanted it to be, like, I wanted to use cherry pink dye? Or did you mean, like, how long did it take to make my outfits? What do you mean? When did you come up with the idea? Oh, that's very simple. Suddenly, I saw that cherry pink existed, and I went, that looks nice. then I used it. It didn't take me like a lot of time to come up with the idea, because the thing is that the cherry pink theme isn't a channel thing. Like, I used only cherry pink dye like years before I started making videos. So it's not like a channel thing, just to be clear. So I just happened to realize that cherry pink existed one day, and then I went for it. So yeah, it didn't take it took years before I realized that cherry pink existed. Let me put it like this: I realized that there were glasses in the game, and then I put on glasses. When I was already at max level in Shadowbring, I was like, wait a minute, there's glasses in this game. Somehow I missed that little detail at some point. So yeah, it was pretty much just discover cherry pink, put on cherry pink. So I don't know how to answer it. Uh-oh, someone greeted too hard. Someone greeted too hard, and now we're possibly going to wipe. Oops. Oopsie poopsie. Oh no. We're going down, down. Down, down. We're going down, ow. So, anyone wondering what happened there? The chain only lasts so long. So, if you stand with it for too long, it'll just disappear in your hands for some reason. So don't overgreed it. Just use the chain. Look, we're not passing here. It'll be fine. We'll beat it. Just use the chain. Just use the chain. I've seen it happen like two times before this, I think. The only times you wipe on Cerberus is if no one goes belly, or if people greet the chain. When I say greet the chain, if one person just goes and does it immediately, then they can do it. They can just run to one chain, do it, run over and do the other chain. That's how much time you have. You don't need to like stand with it for 4 years. Moko Stabbies, let's see, what ticks me off now is that the DPS check is negligible in this particular Savage tier, so the whole bring highest DPS tank argument is null right off the bat. I think that's a good thing. Focus on playing the jobs you like instead of being forced to play the max DPS job. Way better. But I get how it's a little annoying that the DP that you're not like specifically rewarded as much for rushing the damage. Also, Coco says Kai is just a pretty pink princess. Yes, I am. I am indeed a pretty pink princess. Thank you. And Moko says, how excited are you for the glasses change in 7.0? I've asked for that particular change. Like, genuinely, I've described exactly that. Like, I just want a glasses slot so that I can have a hat and glasses. And then followed up by saying, I don't think they're going to do it. It's such a random thing. But I didn't think that it would happen because it's such a random little detail, but it would be nice if they did, and then they say they're adding it. I was like, perfect. No complaints from me. Like that is exactly what I wanted. Like that's like when players say, I want this specific job in the game, and then exactly that job gets announced. That's like me getting announced the glasses slot. It was like, that's the only thing I wanted. Like, that was the only thing on my wish list specifically. Aside from that, I just want cool jobs. Like, nothing in particular. Like, that's on the, I could use a new pair of pants kind of part of my wish list. But I really want the glasses slot, and then we got it. Minato says, no worries, I didn't have time to write. I'm doing MSQ Praetorium for the 1000th time. Ah, that's fair. Yeah, I'm sorry that the story behind the cherry pink dye isn't more interesting. I think that happens a lot when people ask about some backstory on something with the channel or with me. I'm like, oh, it's just this extremely mundane thing. Like, I'm almost a bit sad that I can't deliver some really interesting story. Thank you. I'm glad you like the cherry pink on my characters. Thank you. Rust says, I've seen people greed the chain and cite more DPS, so that excuse is dumb. You know what? If people are running to grab the chain in the very last moment, if the chain people are running to grab the chain in the last second, so that then we can talk about a DPS gain. Because if the person standing with the chain is doing 0 DPS, and the boss isn't taking more DPS while they're reawakening, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure they don't. So the biggest DPS gain is actually getting rid of the chains, like throwing them down, getting them used. So you're not standing there doing nothing. And even if it was a DPS gain, and you know what's a big DPS loss? Dying? Like, this alliance raid is taking longer than the average World of Darkness run, simply because we wiped, because we greeded on the chains. So, like, it's just not worth greeding on it. Yeah, exactly, Moko. You learn it, you make the mistake once. Because the thing is, usually you learn the mistake because you didn't even know that it had a timer, right? Like, that's usually the problem, is that you didn't even know that it had a timer. And everyone gets, like, everyone needs to have their first. Like, you have to learn, like, sometimes you have to fail to learn how the thing works. So don't kick yourself too hard over that mistake, Moko Stabby. And on your comment about Yoshi P watching my streams, I'm just saying that since the last patch, I put out a video about a problem with the Alliance Raid Roulette regarding Crystal Tower, and now we're getting a fix for Crystal Tower, or rather Alliance Raid Roulette. I'm just saying that maybe... There's probably no correlation, but it's funny, isn't it? It's pretty common that I put out a video on something specific, and that specifically gets changed in the following patch. Which is why we have a little running joke about Yoshi P watching the channel. Confirmed Katsu's BFFs with Yoshi P. I would love to be his friend. Hey, look, he seems like an awesome guy. Just in general, just an awesome guy. And yeah, 2 dyes is also going to be cool. Now I have to figure out what dye I will combine with Cherry Pink, because I think maybe double Cherry Pink is going to be a little bit too much. Minato says, fun fact, I love the color pink myself, so I get points for B. Thank you! Excellent! Perfect! I'm staying here. That was extremely efficiently split. Like, everyone got it. I don't think we're getting LB3. Or maybe we are. Nope. We just barely didn't get it somehow. Quick, everyone comment the 8th player. Gustavi says, do you think they will change the way we obtain relics in 7.0, or will they stick the boring home grind? And Matthew got the comment. Nice. I don't know. So, in A Realm Reborn, there was technically a tombstone grind, right? But there was also a significant portion of other stuff for the relic weapon. In Heaven's Ward, there's a significant tombstone grind, but also other stuff. In Stormblood, if I remember correctly, it's just all Eureka. It's just oops, all Eureka. And then in Shadowbringers, it was a little bit of tombstones to get started, and then it was like grind this, grind that, grind this, grind that, with a primary focus on Boja and stuff related to Boja. But pretty much just grind things. I'm pretty sure A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Ward is also a lot of just grind things. It's actually new in Endwalker that the relic weapons are just, oh, just pay me some tombstones. And on the one hand, tombstones are extremely boring as a relic grind method. Like, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that that is extremely dull. Like, wow, that's boring. But anyone here tried to farm a Shadowbringers relic in Endwalker? It's a nightmare. I think, because I finished all of the Shadowbringers relics in Shadowbringers because I knew it would be impossible to finish them in Endwalker. Thank you, Shane, and Hoshi for joining. Good night to you. But yeah, the benefit of Endwalker relics just being tombstones is that when Dawn Trail comes out the next expansion, it's going to be extremely easy to get the Endwalker relics if you want one. And the reason why that matters is a little strange. So, the reason why anyone at all cares about the Shadowbringers relics is because the stats on the Shadowbringers relics are completely freely customizable. So you can, in like a Stormblood ultimate, you can literally just customize it so that you max out your stats perfectly, which you can't do with a level 70 weapon, which makes the Shadowbringers relics objectively better than anything else. But you need to get to the final stage to do that. So you need to go through the whole process. The moment that we get the final stage of the Endwalker relics, if they're also freely customizable, because the stage we have now was almost freely customizable, if the final stage is freely customizable, then they will be better than the Shadowbringers relics. Like, they will just replace the Shadowbringers relics, which means that it kind of matters that they're easier to get. right? But it is not a very interesting adventure to do compared to relic weapons, like the previous relic weapons. That was a lot more of an adventure and a lot more of a like investment, the story and all that. Here it's like Hildebrand's story, and then as a reward for bothering to do it, relic weapon. Which I understand is a little bit boring, but I can see why they might just do Tombstone grind with a little one-time story in between each stage. I can see why it has its appeal, but they might not do it specifically because of the sheer amount of like angry people about the Tombstone stuff. Like, there's a lot of players that said that they're kind of angry about it. The reason why they're not changing it now is because they've probably decided that the relic weapons were going to be like this in Shadowbringers. Like, in the final patch of Shadowbringers, they had probably already figured out that the entire relic weapons like process for Endwalker was going to be like that. They thought people will like it because they didn't like Boja, at least not when it was current. A lot of people didn't like Boja. Now they do. Just like with Eureka, I knew a lot of people didn't like Eureka when it was current, but now they do. Funny how that happens, right? So they go, okay, no side content island like Boja Eureka, just scrap that whole idea. What do we do with the relic weapon? I don't know, tombstones? That could work, right? And here we are. No Boja-like side content, no Eureka-like side content. We have a deep dungeon, we have variant dungeons, but our relic weapons are just tombstones. Lemon says the efficient split was to make up for the Cerberus greed. Smart. Hoshi says, I mean, there were two stories at the FanFest of Yoshi P being just a guy. One where a guy met Yoshi P in a casino at 2 AM. Oh yeah, I remember seeing that. The other was that Yoshi P was in the crowd during the concert of Soken, and he cheered the same as the crowd and just had lots of fun. I remember I saw a picture of Yoshi P just kind of sitting on the floor allegedly during the Crystalline Conflict tournament. Just sitting there. Like no special balcony seat for him. He just sat down on the floor because that was what was available. That's like really good. Like that's really nice in a way. Not that he can't have a fancy chair. The thing is that I'm pretty sure most people at the FanFest expected him to have, you know, like his seat, like at a really nice spot or something, and they would be able to like, they would understand that he had that. That's why people were so impressed that he didn't. Like, that he's so down to earth that he was just, no, I'm one of you guys. I'm just, that's what we have. Like, this is what we're doing. Which I also agree with. It's very incredible. Moko Stabby says, I have free company mates that are grinding the Boja stuff for Shadowbringers relics. They say it's not bad. There's still plenty of people doing that, so for leveling and other things. There are a few people. I believe that if you come on at the right time, you can often get like a full party, but you have to be there at the right time. Moko Stabby also, well, Emir says, I love the Hildebrand stuff. It's very, like, very divisive. Hildebrand is like the kind of stuff where it's like either you hate it or you love it in most cases. That's a little problematic if you make it kind of mandatory, right? Easy solution is that the people that don't like it can just, you know, mash through the cutscenes. But it's a bit of a shame. Moko Stabby says, I think most people are mad just because it doesn't really feel rewarding. Like, yeah, exactly. New Relic step comes out. You just go up and hand him 1,500 tombstones. This patch, when the next stage came out, I made sure to have 1,500 tombstones on hand so that I could just get one immediately. Because I had a pretty good feeling that it was going to be that, right? Like, I just knew it was going to be that, so there was no surprise. There's nothing special. A little boring, I get it. Minato says, I'm not at Endwalker Hildebrand yet. But do the relics tie into the Hildebrand story? I always thought that's why it's just tomes, since the story is the content for them. But like I said, not there, so I don't know myself. So, I just trying to figure out how to explain it without spoiling anything. So between each relic weapon stage in Endwalker, there is Hildebrand story. So there's Hildebrand story, and that as a side product unlocks the next step of the relic quest. The Hildebrand story itself, like the main story, so I'm saying main story because the Hildebrand quest line is like a TV show almost. There's like the main story, and then there's this side story that happens partly up at the same time. The side story explains why the relic weapons are tied into the Hildebrand stuff. The main story has nothing to do with the relic weapons. Zero. Nothing at all. And then when you have done Hildebrand stuff, you get a quest where the explanation for how they suddenly can improve the relic weapon again comes up, and it's explained, usually in a funny Hildebrand-like quest of its own. And then they go, oh, we need 3 of this unobtainium, random material, that incidentally the only way to get it is to buy them from this merchant. For tomestones. The thing is, as we all know, Godbird is infinitely rich. The problem is that that merchant only accepts tomestones, and he does not have any tomestones. But you do. That's basically the reason. If the merchant took any other currency than tomestones, then there would be nothing for you to contribute. You would just be handed the relic weapon. It's from the house. There you go. Oh, how absurd, says, are you still streaming or closing down? We finished the last roulette, so we're probably finishing up in a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit about the relic weapons. Orion says, too long, didn't read, players just don't like stuff. This actually circles back to the thing I talked about with Crystal Tower Roulette. People will convince themselves that they have to do all the viable, like the content that is worth doing, which will make them, will sour them to the idea of that content. As I've said before, there's nothing wrong with Crystal Tower. The reason why people hate Crystal Tower is because they get too much Crystal Tower. I like cake, but if I was served cake every day, then eventually I wouldn't like cake. Right? That's the problem. And that's like Eureka. People didn't like when it was current because you needed to do Eureka for the relic weapons and in some capacity the armor and stuff like that, because that was actually also pretty good. So you kind of had to do it, and the relic weapons at the end were obviously best in slot, and you had to grind because the Eureka relic weapons, their final stage, rolled their stats randomly. So you could randomly be lucky and roll full crit, which was best in slot, or you could roll, I don't know, tenacity determination on a tank, back when determination was kind of bad. So you just had to keep going and just treadmill until you got the right rolls, which is not fun and not nice, so people didn't like it. Because it was mandatory. Then in Shadowbringers Boja did the exact same thing, so people didn't like Boja. Boom. It's that simple. You have to do it. Okay, then I don't like it. So in Endwalker, they say, you don't have to do anything. Just play, just do any content. You will get tomestones. Just pay with those. And then people go, why am I not being forced to do content so I can hate on the content? So you can't win. You just can't win. But it's pretty funny, isn't it? Coco says, I keep seeing people being mad at FanFest. What? That is a really strange complaint. It feels, that feels, the specific complaint Coco pointed out, I think it was something about autistic people not having a quiet room. That feels like, I mean, if you're coming to FanFest, which is a party, I feel like if part of the reason why I wouldn't want to go to FanFest is because I'm not good at parties. So I just don't go. That's a little weird. That's a little bit confusing to me. I can see that it would be inclusive to have it, but I don't know how you would do it. Like, how would you have a quiet room with that many people? You put all the people that want a quiet room into the quiet room, and now it's not a quiet room anymore. What? I don't know how you would solve that. Like, it feels like people complaining for the sake of... Actually, it feels like what I was just explaining. People being mad at having to do content that they don't have to do. Because they've convinced themselves they have to do it. Minoso says, do you have an overall favorite relic from any expansion pack? I've never bothered to farm a relic weapon from before Shadowbringers. I have, like, stage 1 or 2 of, like, the Paladin or... Well, I have, not even 1 or 2, I just have, you know, like, the precursor, you could say, to a relic weapon from Eureka for Paladin and Red Mage. I just never finished because I don't find Eureka that interesting. So, and I don't have, like, well... let me see. There's one that I liked pretty, in particular from Shadowbringers, but I might be remembering it wrong. I really like this one. The Bard one from Shadowbringers, Blade's Muse. But I honestly, some of my favorites right now are relic weapons from Endwalker. Like these stages that we have now. Like, I love this color scheme. Like that. Incidentally, it's kind of pink. I also got this one yesterday, which also looks incredible. Like that red and bluish combination is crazy, and it's a blade. But I've never been like the big relic weapon farmer. Part of the reason why I did the Shadowbringers ones was just because I had started. Like, I had already started on them. So I decided to finish them as like a side project. Just because I could. Moko Stabby says, I want to do a full tenacity build for the memes. You know, the thing is, I think that would be hilarious. The reason why I never would do a tenacity build is because I sat down and looked at the numbers and discovered that the highest possible amount of tenacity you can get is like 12%. If you could get like tenacity up to like 30%, then it would be funny. The problem is that it caps out at only 12%. In World of Warcraft, back when I played a lot in Legion, if you stacked versatility, which is basically tenacity, I'm pretty confident you could get 20%. But why would you do that when you could get like 50+% haste? And if anyone's wondering what that means, imagine if your GCD was 1.66 as a red mage. Just cause you could. Or on a warrior. Or a paladin. Including your spells, by the way. 1.66 GCD. Just all the time. You could do that in like halfway through Legion. in World of Warcraft. Like, not even the final raid tier yet. Not even, like, the second to last raid tier yet. You could get 50% haste. You could have a GCD of Final Fantasy XIV standards 1.66. That was possible. So, like, the reason why stats in Final Fantasy XIV are kind of boring and tame is because even if you stack these, like, crit, you get, like, plus 23% or something like that. In World of Warcraft, you could get over 60% crit if you stacked it. You didn't even have to stack it. If you had the best gear in the game, you had the maximum crit you could ever want, which was like 67 and 62%, and like 2 other stats maxed out. Like, the difference is insane, which is why it would be boring to try and stack tenacity, because it just doesn't get big enough, unfortunately. But I do see the incentive, Mogo Stabby. Exactly, Lemon. I said the same thing. I'd just rather stay home. That's why I stayed home. Hey, Umbral. We're doing well. We finished all of the roulettes. So we're just kind of talking and hanging out. How are you doing? Coco says, apparently disabled people were supposed to have their own line for everything, but didn't. I feel like that is like a common thing with parties, like a fan fest that gets like overwhelmingly big, is that even if they plan for everything, there's just going to be so much chaos because humans that it's going to go a little wrong. Like, not everything is going to be perfect. That's just how it is sometimes. That's why I say, if that's what's being complained about, that seems like it seems pretty good, right? Hoshi said earlier that they read a German article about the FanFest where they kept repeatedly saying that the Final Fantasy XIV community is so wholesome and nice. Like, they focused on the good. It's also possible that the reason why you see people complaining is because the thing is, the people that are happy have no reason to complain. The people that are angry have lots of reason to complain. The people in the middle will just say nothing. That is why it's not always good to listen to the loud minority on something in a game, for example. Because they might be the minority. Matthew says, you cast Final Sting, critical directed. Bahamut Prime takes 1,710,487 damage. That is a lot. Did he not die? Did he not die from it? Well then. Somehow he didn't die. Oh, that did kill him. Fair enough. I thought he actually survived. Emir says he really helped with my healing. My guides, or like doing content like with the group here, or how do you mean? Or in general? Either way, I'm glad that you feel like you improved with your healing. I think you did well. Like, there was some sketchy pulls in Snowcloak, but... Oh, Umbral. Oh, right. Umbral was the one that made the short you showed yesterday, right? The one with the sage... the sage trick with Pepsis? Cool. Well, good to see you, Umbral. But I'm glad that you're feeling like you're getting better at healing him here. It isn't easy to like get really good at it because it can be scary. Yeah, Umbral, we were looking into that yesterday. We talked a little bit about it. My advice was generally that the trick is cool, but my observation was that it's really hard to perform consistently without like a plan. And if you need the healing from the Eucratian Prognosis Pepsis trick that you showed in the short, and you miss it, then you're in trouble, right? So it might not be the best to rely on. Mogustavi says, what trick are we talking about? So the trick is, and I can't demonstrate it here in person because it requires a boss to be attacking. The trick is that if you use Eucratia and then Eucratian Prognosis, so you have shields up, there is like a extremely small time frame where you can get hit by a boss's AoE, it will hit your barrier, you can use Pepsis, remove the barrier, and the damage the boss does is still reduced by the barrier itself. And Umbral demonstrates that in a short. Exactly, that was also what I said, Umbral, was to do it, you need to have the, you need to be able to weave Pepsis at the exact frame, which means that you might need to use like Toxicon or Phlegma or something like that to like have the instant so that you can click it exactly when you need it to. Otherwise you're going to lose uptime, and well, if you're losing, if doses is getting like delayed because you're doing this Pepsis trick, then maybe it's better to use a different cooldown. And then there was the part about the perfectionism required to get it right. That if you were actually relying on those 350 potency, cure potency coming out on everyone, and then they don't because you missed the frame, then hopefully you have a backup plan. Like hopefully you use something else. Because the thing, I haven't tested I haven't gone into a dungeon or something to test if I could do it, because I've been focusing on other things. But the first thing I checked was that it looks to me like Pepsis removes Eucratian Prognosis on frame 1, which means that the damage actually has to connect in the same frame, I'm pretty sure, for it to work. Which makes it really hard, but if you, if for instance you're practicing on a Savage Raid boss for 100 tries, 200 tries, maybe it's your 30th re-clear, it's kind of boring, kind of figured it all out. You might start to play around, see if you can get something fancy to happen, something funny to happen. Maybe you can make Pepsis land. You figured out exactly the frame where the bosses attack snapshots and all that. Then it works. But yeah, the key thing that that I specifically told when we talked about it was, it's a good trick, it's dangerous to use, and it might cost you uptime. So I don't recommend using it, because if you get it wrong, it might be it might spell trouble. But it's a good trick. There's also the important part is that there's a big difference between saying you can do X and saying you can do X and then demonstrating it, which was what Umbral did in the short. Demonstrated literally, you can see that I can do it right here. So that there's nothing like, oh, you can't do that. You can, obviously. It's just really, really strict. Umbral says, I find that some fights you can do this easily and some you really have to adjust some timing to do it. P4S is a really good one that has a natural timing for it. Oh, I see. I could imagine that. I feel also that I'm guessing that a huge part of it is that the depends on exactly when the boss snapshots its attack, because you know some raid wides snapshot and already have decided to deal the damage when the spell finishes casting, and if you just have to look at exactly the frame that the cast bar is full, very nice, like very easy to plan around and get it perfectly. But if you have to be like, okay, and then I count to 3, and then the boss does this animation, and then when it specifically is in that pose, I click because that's the frame where it snapshots. Because some attacks, not necessarily savage boss fights, have really strange snapshots, like when the attack actually chooses how much damage it's doing and who it's hitting and all that. So I'm guessing P4S in that particular case you're referring to has something like that, where the attack actually snapshots when the cast finishes, or something to that effect. Orion says, on Astrologian, blue H means tank or melee and purple equals healer or ranged, right? Right, correct. Exactly. Umbral says, other than that, I hardly use it optimally. Most of the time I do it just for fun and not to worry about the lost uptime. You know what? That's fair. When I'm making my guides, I often will highlight things, tricks you can do, exact like target optimizations to use a specific rotation and things like that. But I don't always do it. Like, discovering that there is a trick and using it perfectly are two different things. It's fun to do science, right? So I totally understand that. Orion says, if you are in a party with 2 melees and you don't have redraw yet, all purple cards are for you. If you don't have redraw yet, then you don't have gravity yet, and if you don't have gravity yet, then your damage in an AoE situation is going to be terrible. But the melees are probably going to be doing decent DPS, even if they don't have their AoE either, because melee jobs are weird. They're probably going to be doing better damage with the ranged card than you are. If you have gravity, then you have redraw, in which case the ranged card is probably fine to put on you. On single targets, like on a boss, I think still that the ranged card might be better on a melee job. But it depends, and what I mean by it depends is actually if your melee DPS are playing poorly or are weird, like in bad gear, like maybe they're a sprout, they don't have gear that is getting scaled down, they're doing the rotation wrong, maybe they're doing way less damage than you would expect. And if that's the case, then it might be better to play the card on yourself. The problem is that unless the player is playing obscenely poorly, you can't tell without third-party tools. Like, you just can't. But yeah, if you do like a level 90 dungeon and the Astrologian puts a melee card on the dancer, then there's an equal chance that it's a mistake and their ACT told them that you're doing so much more damage that there's no point giving the melee cards to the melee DPS. Rust says, I mean, a DPS having less aggro than the healer is a pretty sure sign they aren't doing much damage. It's a possible sign, because healing doesn't do that much enmity, but healing does do enmity, so it's sometimes complicated. Healing does do enmity though. Do you need to have some water aspected ether, Kai? I am having some water aspected ether, but I didn't get enough early enough, I think. So for those that don't know, the way enmity works in Final Fantasy XIV, if we ignore tanks for a moment and just focus on DPS and healers, 1 point of damage equals 1 enmity. Just 1 enmity. 1 point of healing, upfront healing notably, equals half a point of enmity. However, this half a point of enmity is then distributed equally to all of the enemies. So if there's 5 enemies, then you're doing 0.1 enmity to each of them. But if there's only a boss, then you're doing all of it to them. Which means that if I do this, then I'm doing, you know, around 6,000 enmity. And if I do this, I'm doing around 9,000 enmity, right? So if I heal the tank a lot, for some reason, then I might get a lot of enmity. Whereas if I don't heal the tank a lot, then I might not generate a lot of enmity. So a healer beating a DPS on enmity is usually a sign that the DPS is doing extremely badly. Usually. But if the party as a whole is taking an obscene amount of avoidable damage, so the healer's just sitting there spam healing like a fountain of life, then there's a possibility that the reason why is because the healer's just like farming healer enmity. The reason why I say it's upfront healing is because heal over time effects no longer generate enmity. Like they just don't. They haven't since 6.2. I also discovered yesterday that Regen at level 90, applying Regen to someone generates around 200 enmity. The buff itself generates around 200 enmity. Not 2,000, not 20,000, not 200,000. 200. So, if you've ever had a tank complain that you cast Regen on them while they're pulling, then maybe you should ask them if they actually bother to hit everything once. Fishbit says laughs and ears. Oh yeah, that counts as well as heal over time, even though it's a spell. Good night, Emir. Thank you for checking in and hanging out. But yeah, enmity is weird. The thing is that it's not very important. The reason why it matters to understand how enmity works is actually because some players use enmity as a point of reference for who's doing the most damage. But it's complicated. Like, it's complicated to calculate because, like, if it's single target, then usually you're fine. But you don't know how much enmity the healer's been doing. The reason why astrologians generally don't want to buff themselves is because I actually brought this up in my tenacity video the other day. The reason is that while a tank can do like 2/3 of the damage a DPS can do, ish on average, give or take, a healer can do half. Astrologians are like, like the average yielding that half is that Sage and White Mage are pulling the graph up, while Astrologian is like a huge ton weight just dragging it down. Like, with Scholar somewhere in the middle. But Astrologian does incredibly bad DPS. It's on its own. It does like 75% of the damage a white mage or sage does. So you really don't want to play your cards on yourself if you don't have to. But the easiest way to know for sure is if you had a third-party tool. Because if you're doing half the damage a melee DPS is, then the card played on yourself is better than playing it on the DPS. Usually. Usually. Right? White Mage being one of the few jobs in an attack with over 1000 potency is funny to me. I think it's really funny that that White Mage has a higher potency attack than Black Mage. That one is pretty good. Even if you count Enochian and all that. Because White Mage also has Maim and Mend. Need more Xenoglossy buffs. I think I mentioned this Sunday, but Xenoglossy started at 660 at the start of this expansion. It started at 660. Like, at the start of the expansion, Xenoglossy was like the begrudgingly, oh well, there's only one target, so I'll use Xenoglossy. It's better than using Foul on single target. But Foul was easily better even on 2 targets. Now Xenoglossy is so good that Foul is only slightly better on 3 targets. Well, a little bit better than slightly better, but you know what I mean. Xenoglossy got a 33% potency boost over the course of the expansion. It's insane. Even more if you count the Enochian buffs. Because Enochian 3 he started at 20%. I remember I actually did a patch note reading for the patch where Enochian here got boosted to 21%. And I remember I did that because I remember being so bewildered that it was 21% and including that in the video. Like, everything was so perfect. It was 5, 10, 15, 20, and then it becomes 5, 10, 15, 21. And now it's 5, 10, 15, 23. Like, why? Eno-chan. Fishbird says, wasn't Foul not an instant cast until Endwalker? Am I remembering wrong? Foul was... I'm pretty sure Foul was an instant cast since Shadowbringers, but it's specifically enabled to be instant by a trait at level 80. Which might be why you remember it like that. I'm pretty sure it was always like that. The percent is slowly creeping up. I think it's a shame, because a side product of Xenoglossy getting these buffs is actually that at the start of Endwalker, I remember that spell speed Black Mage was like great. Like, that was almost like the standard, like the gold standard. Yeah, you could go crit. And then people started to discover these transpose lines that generally benefited crit more. You know what benefits crit more? A button you only get one of every 30 seconds. Now that benefits crit. If Xenoglossy gets enough buffs, then spell speed Black Mage builds will simply stop being viable. Because crit is better. Because what if your Xenoglossy crits? Could you imagine? And the reason why I have noticed it like that is because at the start of Endwalker, spell speed was great, as I said. But nowadays, there's a significant portion of Black Mages that genuinely believe that as much as considering spell speed as an option is considered a mistake. Even though it isn't. the damage difference between the two is just so small that that it's mostly like a preference thing. Still, despite that, despite the Xenoglossy buffs. Right, so I have a teleport to Uldar apparently. Mocha Stabby says, I'm not looking forward to leveling up my Black Mage. It'll be my last job to 90 after I'm done with White Mage. And I'm not a fan of the job at all. Well, you don't have to level it. You don't have to level it. If you really, really want to make sure it's leveled up, but you can't deal with not leveling it, Mocha Stabby, what you could do is, so if you go into frontline, right? If you do frontline, when you enter frontline, the job that gets the XP at the end when you finish is always the job you entered with. You can switch job in the middle of the front line and the job you entered with will still be the job that gets the experience, as far as I remember. So you could literally level Black Mage by just doing frontline every day without ever playing Black Mage. If you really want to. It's going to take a while, because it's just one roulette. You could do that. Also, welcome back, Gilano. You didn't miss everything, I don't think, but I'm glad to see you back. I'm sorry that you had to go when we got to the... before I managed to start the 8-man content. Orion says refer to the conversation earlier about not having to do content. Exactly. And Chloe's journal is also a way to get like half a level every week, just free, and that is true. Rust says leveling Black Mage is pain, but playing it in 80+ content is fun. Yeah, I see what you mean. Personally, I actually think that the level 50 rotation is kind of fun. Even the level 60, or even like 59, where you have Blizzard 4 but not Fire 4, is kind of funny. But the closer you get to Umbral Soul without having Umbral Soul, the more that sucks to not have. And Black Mage gets so much quality of life as you level up, so I see what you mean there. How high level is your White Mage, Mocha Stabby? $68. Well, I think a lot of people would say that White Mage tends to really take off when they get to level 74. So, look forward to that, I guess. 76 also helps a lot. 74, when you get the Blood Lily, tends to be where a lot of people get a lot more excited. Yeah, White Mage is a little... It's not the most extreme job, but I feel like it's very nice. It does what it needs to do very well. Oh yeah, the lack of Faded Circle until level 72. Right. So, if you enjoyed what you saw on this stream, then remember that there is a community Discord server where you will find many of these awesome people you've seen in the chat. You'll also find me, and you will find a weekly schedule so you can see what's coming up. You can also see an announcement whenever I plan a new stream, whenever I post a new video, anything. You will see a little announcement there. You can also opt in to get tagged for it, so you're not going to get spammed with tags from me without actually like asking for them yourself. So yeah, if you want to have an easier time keeping track of what's happening on the channel, you can become part of the Discord community. Other than that, I hope you all enjoyed the stream, enjoyed watching me play some Dragoon. I hope it wasn't I didn't make too many mistakes. I did notice some I did myself. But it was fun. And I hope if you did enjoy the stream that you will... I would appreciate it if you liked the stream in the YouTube thing. That helps me a lot. So thank you. And yeah, thank you for watching. Good night or good morning, afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And well, I'll hopefully see some of you tomorrow for the solo challenge stream, where we're going back into Castrum. Maybe I can actually solo it from start to finish this time, or maybe we do something else. Good night.